Hi everyone! I am so excited to be back and to finally give part 2 of my review of the RMK Rosewood Daydream collection for fall 2021. This time around we are going to be taking a look at the beautiful new Four Eyes eyeshadow palettes. They come in this gorgeous faded rose gold packaging, of course with the accompanying cardboard box. When you open it up, you get a mirror and 4 eyeshadow pans. I kind of wish that this opened up all the way, like it kind of just stops here at this awkward angle, but that's a minor concern. And then each palette also comes with a dual-ended RMK eyeshadow applicator. So there's like a felt tip on one end and a brush on the other end. These are actually not that bad as far as the little plastic applicator things go, but for now I'm just gonna leave it here untouched because, as you know, I do prefer to use my own eyeshadow brushes and stuff, especially when I'm at home. I'm sorry, whenever I see this name, Four Eyes, I just think of like four eyes, four eyes. Remember back in the day when that used to be an actual insult on the playground? Like if you got glasses, the mean kids would make fun of your glasses by calling you four eyes. Never actually happened to me now that I think about it, nor did I witness it happen to anyone else that I know of. But for some reason I just feel like in TV shows and movies and stuff at the time, that was like a huge bullying trope back in the 90s.
You're wearing glasses! Four eyes!
Anyway, back to the palettes. I'm sorry, by the way, that this video took me so long to film. A lot of unexpected things popped up in the past 2 weeks and well, I won't get into it now, but it's been pretty crazy to say the least. And then the cherry on top was, of course, getting my second Moderna shot 2 days ago, which just basically knocked me out for the entirety of yesterday. I was in bed for almost 24 hours straight because of just like the pain. My entire upper body was sore. I had a fever, could barely move my left arm. It was just a huge mess. But I did manage to sleep it off. Like I said, I stayed in bed for almost 24 hours straight. And I called in sick to work and everything because I was just like, there's no way that I can go in this state of pain and full body aches that I'm in right now. So yeah, thankfully I do feel a lot better today and we're here now. So let's just go ahead and dive into these Rosewood Daydream palettes. So I did end up picking all 4 quads, but just to let you know right away, I won't be demoing all 4 in this video, unfortunately. And the reason for that being, I mean, yes, admittedly, I just don't have the time or energy to churn out 4 looks for this video. But also when you place these palettes side by side, I think they genuinely all look really similar, especially 01, 02, and 04. Like when you place those side by side, come on, it's basically the exact same color story. The exact same hues, just in varying intensities. They all have some sort of nudie color with a Bordeaux dark red and a mossy greenish brown. The only thing that really differs is the texture or finish of certain shades. Like one palette may contain a matte dark red, but then the next one has the exact same red shade almost in a shimmer formulation. So it's like, do you really need all of that? I don't know. That being said though, I'm not gonna really count this as a negative point just because I do feel like with this kind of a collection and with a Japanese high-end brand in particular, such as an RMK, the point is to pick the one eyeshadow quad that suits your complexion or your tastes the most. Now I picked up all 4 obviously because I make beauty content and also just for collection purposes, if I'm gonna be completely honest. The point being is that the average consumer is probably not going to pick up all 4 palettes. They would go with just the 1 or 2 at most that resonates with them. So with that being said and done, I'm going to go ahead now and show you the looks that I created with the 2 palettes that intrigued me the most, which would be 02 Lasting Rose and 03 Golden Sienna. Golden Sienna I think is obviously the most unique and standout quad of the entire collection, just color-wise speaking, because the finish is pretty much consistent for all of the shadows. But yeah, Golden Sienna, I mean, it's the only one with the yellow, so it sticks out like a sore thumb. So let's get into the application footage first, and then at the end I'll give you a little summary of my overall thoughts on the palettes. It'll be short and brief. I don't have much to say, but I do have just a few cons that I do have to mention. No deal breakers or anything, but definitely a few areas that didn't exactly live up to the standards of perfection that I'm so used to getting from RMK, you know? So stick around until the end if you're interested in finding out what those are. Without further ado, let's get into the 2 looks. Okay, for the first look, we are using the 02 Lasting Rose palette. I'm just laying down my ABH eye primer base all over as usual, then going in first with this matte terracotta orangey brown shade on the bottom left. The shades don't have names, so I'm just going to describe by color and finish. Then laying on top the sparkly maroon red shade here, making sure that it only goes halfway up to the terracotta shade, and then of course blending them into each other so that both are visible and get their moment to shine. And we are just making the overall classic domed halo eye shape, leaving a space in the center to place our shimmer color on later. Then I'm just going in with a very small amount of the matte dark brown just to define the outer V. And last but not least, taking this gorgeous peachy pink glitter topper shade here and applying all over the center of my lids, as well as in the lower inner corners for that highlighting effect. Oh, what do we have here? Oh, hi! Hi, it's Maxine! Maxine's foot! Okay, so I'm just finishing up the eyes here with the usual step: eyeliner, lashes, mascara. Then for the cheeks, I'm using Can Make's Cream Cheek Blush in P03 Orange Terracotta, which has a beautiful pearl finish to it. And yeah, I think this blush just goes perfectly with this eyeshadow look. Finally, on my lips, I have the Mersey Blur Fit tint in BT5, not BTS. And here is the final look using the Rosewood Daydream Lasting Rose 4 Eyes palette. Look number 2, using the 03 Golden Sienna palette. Starting off with the ABH eyeshadow primer base as always, going straight in with the warm brown matte chestnut shade on the bottom left. Next, deepening up the lower half of the eyelid with the darker cocoa brown shade on the top right. And again, we're just sticking with a classic halo eye shape. So I'm now sweeping this glittery copper shade all over the center of the lid, which I left a little blank. You could just leave it like this and it would look like a great, you know, sparkly but still subdued everyday look for the office or whatever, but I just felt like I wanted to make it pop a little more for the sake of being on camera. So I just took a little bit of that bright yellow shimmery glitter on my finger and tapped over the copper. I used the same shade along the inner 2/3 of my lower lash line and as an inner corner highlight. I love this yellow because it's actually like a true bright yellow. It doesn't wash me out or look weird against my undertones, but it's also like, for being so bright, it also manages to not give off any gold vibes at all, which I love. It's just a pure icy yellow effect. So for lips at first, I applied the Comfort Airy Shine in EX05, but I wasn't feeling it with the tones in this eyeshadow quad in particular, so I switched to my trusty Mersey Blur Fit Tint lip formula in BT1 Uncommon Beige. For blush, I applied my Silly Blush in Anemone as a base, then layered on top the RMK Ingenious Powdered Cheeks in EX19, which is the limited color for this collection, only because I feel like the EX19 Amber Sunset shade is just a little too orange on its own against my skin, almost artificial looking, so I wanted to make it more wearable by layering something more natural peachy looking underneath. And there you have it, that is my dedicated look for the Golden Sienna Rosewood Daydream palette. thoughts. Okay, so overall, I really do love the two eyeshadow palettes that I tried so far from this Rosewood Daydream collection. I mean, is that really a surprise though? RMK eyeshadows always hit the spot, even when they don't, like when they're not exactly matching up with my taste. I still have to recognize that the ingredients and wearability is good for its intended purpose, if that makes sense. But I do actually personally really love the colors and finishes that were in this particular collection. Even though it does seem a little repetitive from quad to quad, as I stated in the beginning, I feel like this whole collection too, you know, just the whole concept and visual aesthetics, it could not have been a more perfect debut from Yuki-san, who is the new creative director over at RMK. Yeah, I feel like it just perfectly combined, you know, Yuki's more edgy, street, avant-garde style with the classy, sophisticated, high-class sensibility that we have always known RMK for. Even though there's more of a hazy, sultry quality than we're used to seeing from this brand with the dark reds and moss greens, it still maintains that classic, like, blown out diffused effect at the end of the day. So the formulas themselves, as you can see from both my eye looks that I created and my hand swatches here, they deliver exactly what you would expect, like a silky, smooth satin finish, super finely milled, minimal fallout. Even the mattes have that subtle sheen-like finish, so they don't look ashy or dry. My favorite shades out of both palettes would have to be the super glittery top coat-like shade from each. So that would be this peachy shade in the Lasting Rose palette, and of course this cool icy yellow in the golden sienna. There's like two different types of glitter formulation in this collection. So I think you have the through and through shimmery top coat type, as well as the more solid satin base color with glitter particles dispersed throughout. So for example, this maroon color. But yeah, like I was saying, definitely the two top coat style glitters are my favorites. I think I probably mentioned this before in previous RMK videos, but I'll just repeat it again here. RMK glitters or shimmers, I'm not sure which one to call them actually. I think shimmers might be more appropriate in this case because they are so finely milled, like much finer than a regular old eyeshadow glitter formula. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with shimmer. So if I had to pick the one area with regards to eyeshadows in particular where I feel like RMK is truly offering something unique that literally like no other brand on the market right now can quite replicate, it would have to be their shimmery eyeshadow formulation. It's just so super sparkly and pretty. Because it's so finely milled, it almost looks like wet on the lids, but not in a sweaty or unflattering way, just in a beautiful glistening way. If you're someone who's like, oh, I really want to incorporate some shine and sparkle into my makeup, but I'm afraid that my work or my school is too conservative for that, trust me, RMK's shimmer formulation has you covered. One really versatile point about them, you can basically spread them out as thin as you want or build it up in separate layers, which sounds like, well, duh, can't you do that with any glitter eyeshadow from any other brand? No, you can't. Okay, you can't get the same effect as an RMK shimmer. It's just something about their formula that retains that refined, sophisticated quality. No matter how you cut it or which way you decide to use it, whether you apply a little or a lot, you're gonna end up looking expensive and bougie as hell, okay? Just trust me on this one. RMK glitters and shimmers are top tier. They will never have you out here looking cheap or trashy. Now the shades themselves, I will say, like the actual color shades, are probably very dupable with cheaper drugstore brands. In all honesty, like RMK is not known anyway for doing those crazy, you know, one-of-a-kind duochromes or whatever, but I am quite confident in saying that you will never get the exact same shimmery finish in another brand that you will with an RMK. This I am quite sure of. Okay, so now that I've sung the praises into the sky, it feels like, about their shimmer formulation, I do have to mention some difficulties that I had working with their matte shades in particular. It's always the mattes that are the troublemakers, isn't it? I found them to be just a little difficult to blend at times, and this is several times now in my real life that I've actually used both palettes, not just the 2 times that I did as a demonstration for this video. Part of it I really do feel like can be attributed to the eyeshadow primer that I used, because that ABH base is really intense, to be fair. It really grips onto eyeshadow and makes it like stay in place and not budge, which is good. That's exactly what we want in an eyeshadow primer. But I feel like with these Rosewood Daydream quads, I really had to do that technique of, you know, tapping off the excess eyeshadow on my brush every time that I dipped into one of the matte shades before applying it to my lids, or else it would just cling way too hard and way too dark to whatever place that I initially placed my brush on. And then on top of that, I felt like I was never able to quite blend it out as softly as I wanted to. I mean, yeah, tapping the brush is a good technique for any eyeshadow, but I feel like I shouldn't have to be so careful with Japanese high-end eyeshadows in particular, just by nature of them being designed specifically to look softer and more natural to begin with. So that's number one of kind of a con that I found with this formula. I found it to be patchy and hard to blend out if I wasn't really careful with my initial application. And number two, which is kind of related to the same thing, I found that when I did go in and try to blend the edges out or blend two shades seamlessly into each other, again, I had to be like really careful to only blend in a specific spot, or else the whole thing would easily turn into just one muddy shade. So in that respect, I cannot 100% say that these quads are necessarily beginner friendly. I think you would have a much better and easier time with them if you're like intermediate makeup level or up. Clearly for me personally, it's like not that big of a deal. I still love the effect that I was able to create with these. Don't regret picking them up at all. Definitely going to be using them in heavy rotation from here on out. But yeah, I just wanted to give you an honest assessment of the pros and cons for your information. If anything that I mentioned sounds like a deal breaker for you, then maybe you can go ahead and skip this collection without any regrets. Okay, so that is it, you guys, for my RMK Rosewood Daydream collection review. Whew, I'm like sweating for real right now. As always, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, concerns, anything in the comments, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!